Now that we know all about curves, let's take a look at a few simple examples of things we can do with them. Every time I run this program, I create a new random Catmull-Rom curve. I draw it with a very light stroke. The transparency is something like 20. Then I move every vertex of the curve a little bit towards the next vertex in the curve. So every point is kind of chasing the point that comes after it. Over time, the curve tends to get smaller, and of course the lines begin to accumulate, giving us a very dark image. But I really like the sorts of structures that we get from running this program. The way the points move sometimes gives us a very dark region and sometimes a very light region, and sometimes it has a very nice organic quality. Of course, some runs are prettier than others because the curves are random, and that's part of the fun of generating curves with random numbers. But I enjoy seeing what comes out of the program. This is a very short program, there's not much to it at all, but it generates some interesting looking results. And this is a general technique that you'll probably find yourself using many times. By drawing your primitives with a very light stroke and changing them from frame to frame and letting everything accumulate, you can get some very interesting patterns. Here's a little program that was inspired by the fox and hen example we saw some time ago. The little white circle I'm thinking of is a bunny, and it's running around on this grassy field being chased by the orange fox. Now the bunny is on a path. There's a random Catmull-Rom curve that I create at the beginning of the program, and the bunny just runs along that path around and around. But notice that the fox is not on that path. The fox is just chasing the bunny wherever the bunny happens to go. So as the bunny runs away from the fox tries to catch up, and it's a lot of fun to watch as the fox runs right after the bunny, sometimes nearly catches up, but the bunny usually gets away, and sometimes the bunny scoots away really fast. Here's a fun little variation on the last program. Now we have two bunnies. One is white, one is pink. Each of them is traveling on its own path. Now, like before, the fox is chasing after the bunnies, but there's an interesting wrinkle. The fox always chases after the closest bunny. So right now the fox is chasing after the pink bunny, and at some point the white one will be closer, and the fox will switch over and start chasing the white one, and there he goes. And now the fox is chasing the white bunny. And he'll do this for a while, and eventually the pink one will be closer, and the fox will jump over, and there he goes, and now he's following the pink one. Of course, you could have 100 bunnies, and then the fox would just be frantically jumping from one to the other, trying to catch any of them. In this program, rather than using curves to control the motion of something, I'm actually using curves to draw things. I call this bones because these shapes originally began as dog bones, but then I played with them and changed them and they became a little bit more interesting. This program was a little bit more complicated to write than the other ones that we've seen, but there's really not that much to it. There's just a whole lot of detail to keep track of. Basically, each of these shapes has the same structure. It's 4 curves that make up the outside, and then a bunch of curves on the inside that give it some texture. Everything is generated by random numbers, including the colors and the thickness of the strokes. This will run forever, and it will generate an endless number of variations on this basic shape. So here are 3 different examples of things you can do with curves. We can use curves to control the motion of objects, we can draw the curves directly, or we can use the curves as primitive elements to build up a more complicated shape.